And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all those assembled, welcome once again to Stories for Children. And today we have an extra special treat for you. We have the one, the only Shane, and watch me mess up his last name, Ibbs.
Ibbs.
Ibbs. See, I knew I was going to mess it up. Ibbs. And you know, in most languages, when you have the I has an E sound. But when it comes to people's names, the sound is the one they give you. Yes. So we have the one, the only Shane Ibbs. And he's going to regale us with stories as only he can regale. Indeed, so ladies and gentlemen, indeed. I'm going to attempt to be quiet. We're going to say hello to Louis, who is our number
Louis.
One youth fan for Stories for Children.
Good to see you, Louis. It's been a long time.
Shane, Louis may have to leave early if he has swim today. So if you see him packing up and going, it's not you.
Okay. So if he puts his goggles on and his flippers and his snorkel and he does this, that means he's going swimming, doesn't it?
That means he's going swim. All right. All right. So Shane, okay. 3, 2, 1. It's on you. You have the floor.
Well, so I thought I would share with you a winter tale because we are in the middle of winter. And well, it was a few years ago now when I was sitting in my garden, and it was a bit of a cold day, and I noticed this bird there, this white bird, white feathers, white beak, white legs, and he was hopping around, and every time he came out to turn a leaf over to eat some bugs or grubs or what have we, Jack Frost would make an appearance and he would just freeze all the ground. So the leaves were stuck to the ground with the frost, and he couldn't turn a leaf over and get anything to eat. Poor thing. Can we have a bit of an Oh, yeah. He couldn't get anything to eat. So he would fly back into the bush, and he would sit there and wait, and he would wait until Jack Frost disappeared. And you know, in Britain, in England, Jack Frost, he makes an appearance, then he disappears, then he makes an appearance, then he disappears. You know, and then it gets warm and you think, oh, winter's over. And then he makes another appearance again. And that's the sort of mischief that Jack Frost portray. You know, that's what he does. That's what he gets up to. And well, the bird, it got mild, and the bird thought, oh, it's time for something to eat. I'm really hungry. He flew down, and just as he landed on the ground, who do you think made an appearance? Jack Frost. He just froze everything again, and everything was stuck hard to the ground, and he couldn't get anything to eat. And he said, oh, I'm getting so hungry. And I felt sorry for this bird. Well, the bird flew back into the bush again, and he waited for another mild day. Another mild day came. He flew out. Jack Frost again froze everything. Well, this poor bird, he went back into the bush, and Jack Frost, well, he stayed around for days and days. And the bird was freezing cold, and he was so hungry. His poor little tummy was rumbling away, and he wanted something to eat, anything to eat, a bug or a grub or a worm or anything to eat, but there was nothing to eat, and he was shivering. And then I saw this little bird come in the garden, and the white bird saw him too. We both saw him at the same time. And this little bird, he flew into a holly bush, and he picked a little red berry off the holly bush, and he polished it up on his chest, and he put it back onto the holly bush, and then he took.
It was so cold that Shane got frozen, but he'll be back. Polishing berries. No, I'm not going there. But listening to that bird being hungry and knowing that Terry's eating and that Phil is having high tea and I have a protein shake. But it tastes good. Oh, and Donald has, we don't know what's in Donald's mug.
Coffee.
Okay, that's your story. Stick to it.
Yeah.
Shane will be back in a moment. I say I'm thinking of all the inappropriate puns. Like I'm tempted to sing Aretha Franklin's song, but instead of saying shame, 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 I'm gonna go Shane, Shane, Shane. But we won't do that. See, Terry knows.
What about take these shanes from my heart?
Donald, I'm the bad punster.
That's the sound of the man working on the chain gang.
Oh, that was bad. That was worthy.
Then there was the people bringing him Shane to a festival, and he said, "I've taken a Shane to you."
Oh my goodness, what have I started?
Yeah, I
You guys are up
I
to
see the link there,
shenanigans.
Norman.
Huh?
I see the link there.
He's
Yes.
seen a light there. All these shenanigans are really getting to me.
Uh,
Come on, Shane, we're waiting on you.
I can do a short story, very short one. It doesn't matter if it's interrupted when he returns.
If it's a short one, go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, wait
what's
a minute.
up?
There he is. That
Good.
was indeed short. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Shane, Jack Frost was so cold, he froze you out.
You're muted, Shane.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jack Frost, it was so cold, he froze you out.
He froze me out. Literally, this is the mischief that Jack Frost gets up to. You see, he froze me completely. Let's hope he doesn't do it again. Well, there he was, freezing the ground every time, and the white bird. Well, it was days and days, and he was so hungry. His tummy was making little drumming sounds. It was so hungry, gurgling away. And he was watching this bird, as I say, this bird that came in, polishing these little red berries on his chest and putting the holly berries back, and he'd take another holly berry. And the more he did it, well, his chest turned bright red, you see, this little bird. And the white bird was watching him, and he thought, what is this bird doing? And the little white bird flew over to the bird, and he said, excuse me, he said, what are you doing? And the bird said, with the red breast, he said, well, I'm getting these berries and I'm polishing them up so they're really shiny so all the birds can see them. And the little white bird said, well, why are you doing that? He said, well, so the birds can eat them. And the white bird looked at him, he said, you can eat them? And the robin said, oh, yes, yeah. Well, you've gathered it's a robin. And the robin said, well, yes, you can eat them. And the white bird said, oh, I never knew that. And the robin said, oh, yes, he said, all the yellow berries, the red berries, the orange berries, you can eat them all, you know. And the white bird thought, oh, at last I've got something to eat. So he flew off to the nearest bush. He ate some red berries, and they were juicy, and they got all his beak all dripping with juice. And he flew to a bush with some yellow berries, and he ate some yellow berries, and there was all juice on his beak. Well, I don't know you, Louis, if you mix yellow and red together, if you're painting, what color do you get? Do you know if you mix red and yellow? Phil is drinking it, actually. The color, I'm drinking it too, orange. Well, the bird's beak went orange. And do you know what? He couldn't wipe it off after that. It stained his beak orange. Well, anyway, he had his fill of berries. He went back into the bush. Well, Jack Frost came again, of course, but he knew he could have the berries now. But Jack Frost stayed for days and days. And the little bird got colder and colder and colder. And he thought, I can't stay in this bush all through the winter. I'll freeze to death. And he thought, what can I do? Well, I don't know what you think he could do, Louis, but the little white bird, he thought, where can I go where there's something warm? And he looked around and he looked on the rooftops of the little cottages, and one of them had a curl of smoke coming out of the top of the chimney. And he thought, they've got a fire. So the white bird flew across to the chimney, and he stood on top of the chimney pot, and he looked down, and sure enough, right down the bottom there was a fire going, and he could feel just a little bit of the warmth from the fire. And he thought, if I hop inside that chimney pot, it's just right. So he hopped inside the chimney pot, and there was a little brick ledge, and there he was on that little brick ledge, the white bird, and he could feel a little bit of warmth from the fire. And he thought, oh, this is roasty toasty. This will keep me warm all through the winter. Well, being a bird, after a little while, he got a bit twitchy and a bit fiddly, and he just sort of hopped along the little wooden shelf, hop, hop, hop. He just couldn't stop. He hop, hop, hopped. He just couldn't stop. He hop, hop, hopped. He just couldn't stop. And every time he hopped along, he knocked all the soot off the inside of the chimney, and it started to blacken all of his feathers. And then he carried on hopping, and it buffed up all of these black feathers that he had until they were magnificently shiny and bright. And he had this beautiful orange beak. Well, eventually the winter left and the spring came, and he could hear children calling outside, and he thought, oh, it's time for me to go. And he flew out of that chimney, this beautiful shiny black bird with an orange beak. And the children pointed and they went, look, it's a blackbird. And that is how the blackbird came to be. And it's a true story because I saw it with my own eyes.
Of course, in America, we call him an African-American bird. But that's
do you?
another story.
Yes,
no.
I'm with you. Yes.
That was a wonderful story. Hold up just one moment. For those of you just tuning in, this is Stories for Children featuring the one and only Shane Ibbs, as he tells us stories, and he just told us how the blackbird came into being. And we're going to return to him, but just want to say hello and thank you for tuning in to everyone in social media, especially on Facebook. Back to you, Shane.
Thank you. I just want to show you a little item. If you can see that, it's a basket. And it's a story about a basket maker, someone who makes baskets. And often baskets are made from willow, a tree called a willow, really thin little withies, they're often called, off the willow tree. And the basket maker, well, he would go down and he would cut some withies and he would make a basket. He might make a basket with a handle or like a wicker basket, like I just showed you, to put your rubbish in, or he might make a picnic hamper, just all manner of things made out of baskets. But for collecting fruit, for collecting vegetables, everyone had a basket way back in time, and that was his job. Now, the knife he used, well, see, this basket maker was quite a poor man, and he just had an old butter knife. And they're not very sharp. And he sharpened up the best he could on a stone, but it still wasn't very sharp. And the handle was a bit broken and it was a bit old, but he was still able to run his hand down the bottom of those willows and just cut the withies off, as we call it. He'd cut the withies off and he would take them back home and he'd put them on his table and he would start to weave a basket of some description. And well, one day he was out there down the hedgerow, cutting some withies, and he heard someone say, "Hello, excuse me," and he looked around and he couldn't see anyone there. And he carried on cutting some withies and, "Excuse me, hello," and he looked around, down here," and he looked down and there was a tiny little man about this tall, dressed in green with a little red hat. It was a little elf. "Oh, hello, how are you?" he said. "I see you make willow baskets." "Oh, I do indeed. I'm a basket maker." "Well, me and my wife," said the elf, "we've had a little baby and we haven't got a crib for the baby. Could you make us like a little crib that rocks for the baby from the withies?" "Oh, well, I don't know if I can do that," he said. The withies I've got are rather a bit too thick to make a little crib for a little elf baby, because a little elf baby must only be about this big." He said, "Oh, I don't think that'll work. I'll go back and ask my wife." "I'll come with you," said the elf. "Oh, all right," he said. "All right." They went back to the basket maker's house and his wife was there. And the basket maker said to his wife, "This little elf wants us to make a little crib for his wife's about to have a little baby, but the withies are too thick and we don't know what to use." And she said, "Well, I don't know what to use." And the elf said, "Mrs.," he said, "could I borrow one of your hairs from your head?" And she said, "It's a strange question." He said, could I just pluck one of the little hairs out of your head?" And she said, "Well, okay." And he just plucked a little hair out of her head. And she said, "Oh, I didn't feel a thing." He said, "Could I pluck a few more?" So he plucked 3 hairs out of her head and he gave them to the basket maker. And the elf said, "You can make your basket from these 3 hairs." And the basket maker sort of looked at them and said, well, okay, well, how will I know to find you? And he said, "Go back to the hedgerow where you saw me. And when you've made the basket, there'll be something there for you." So he said, "Thank you." And the elf went back off to Elfland, and the basket maker, well, he kind of took these hairs and they just multiplied. And before long, he had made a beautiful little crib to rock his the elf's little baby in. A beautiful little crib it was from these hairs. It was wonderful. He was a very skilled craftsman. Well, it was the next day before he had to take it, and his wife looked at it and she said, "Oh, I'd like to make a little blanket for it," she said. "Well, okay, dear wife," he said, "okay." So she had some little material and she got a little bit of material, beautiful little bit of purple material. And she kind of snipped, and she made this beautiful little purple blanket. And she put it into the crib and she said, "Oh, that's perfect for that little elf baby." Well, they went to bed, got up the next morning. Well, while the basket maker was washing his face, his wife thought, I'm going to put a little silver sixpence in there. No, we don't, a silver threepence it was, not a sixpence. It was a silver threepence, actually. I've forgotten. So long ago, the coins were so different back in the day. A tiny little silver threepence. And she hid it under the blanket. And the basket maker had no idea it was there. But he took this little basket anyway, and he took it, and he went to the place where he'd met the elf, and the elf wasn't there. And he thought, well, I'll leave it for him. And he just put it down on a little tree stump, just where he'd met the elf, and he went back home. And he told his wife, and she said, oh, well, he'll probably come along and pick it up. She said, check tomorrow morning. Go and check tomorrow morning. So the day passed. Next morning, he thought, I'll go and have a look. So he went down the lane, and the crib was still there. The elf hadn't taken it. And he thought, well, that's odd. The elf asked me to make it, and he's left it here. That's very unusual for an elf. And he picked the crib up, and he had a look, and he picked up the purple blanket, and he saw the little silver threepence. He thought, that's the reason the elf hasn't taken it. Doesn't my wife realize you must never give an elf a silver coin? The elf had refused to take the crib. He thought, I have to take it back home now. So he went back home. He took it back, and he talked to his wife, and he said, wife, don't you know you mustn't give silver money to an elf? I'm sorry, my dear. She said, I thought they might benefit, I thought that would help them out. He said, no, you must never give an elf money of silver. But he looked at this little silver threepence, and he thought, well, I'd like to do a little decoration for it or something. And he took out his little hammer and his little sword, and he kind of hammered away on his anvil, the basket maker, and he snipped a bit, and he hammered away a bit more, and he heated it up, and he hammered away a bit more, and he made a beautiful little silver butterfly. And he attached that to the crib, and he thought, well, it's not money, it's just a beautiful silver butterfly. And I think the elf would like that. And he took it back down the lane, and he left it there, went home. Next morning, he went back to see if the elf had taken it, went down, and it had disappeared. The elf had taken it, and he thought, well, the elf said he'd leave me something. I wonder what he's left me. And he looked around, and he couldn't see what he'd left him. And he looked around a bit more, and then a little glint from the sunlight caught his eye. And there, in the hedgerow, was a magnificent penknife made of beautiful wooden handle, made with silver and little bits of gold decoration. And it was the sharpest penknife that he'd ever owned. And he made baskets with that beautiful penknife for the rest of his life. And he handed it on to his son, who made baskets. And he handed it on to his son, who made baskets. And as far as I know, that penknife is being handed on through every generation. That's the story of the basket maker.
Well, I guess you could say that penknife was a cut above the rest.
Yeah.
I like that story.
You've such a razor wit.
I've been accused of being sharp. Sorry,
Yeah,
Shane.
I've heard you call that you're a basket case.
See, that was going to be my next one, right? Okay.
It's a very new story for me, that actually I only came across it recently, and I told my 92-year-old father-in-law and his wife, who's 84, that story, and they loved it. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to share it with you tonight, actually. So it's still a story in the making, a bit like a basket, really. I'm still making that story. But
well, we enjoy this story. I mean, we're enjoying you, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So without further ado, or a don't,
yes.
It's back to you.
So Louis, are you going swimming yet? You are, okay. So it might, I'm wondering, so I'm thinking about which story to tell you. So I've got another new story that I've only told one person, and I'm thinking, do I tell that, or do I tell another story that I tell all the time? And I'm working it out as I'm talking to you, as us storytellers often do. We're often going, do I tell this story? Do I tell that story? And my head is doing this at the moment. In fact, could you join in? Could you it might help me if you just do a little bit of this, people. It'll help me think about, and you, Norman, I can see you. And just join in a little bit. And I'm thinking away there. And yes, this is it. And I think
new story.
And that's exactly what I'm going to tell. Thank you, Norman. How did you know?
Hey, Shane, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you ever opened your mouth to tell a story and another story came out instead?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it's funny how
and
it works.
He's off. He's getting ready to go.
He's off. Louis off, but I'll do my best for you, Louis. So, well, this is the story in a land where, well, most of the year it's covered in snow and ice. The northern part of our world, where there's snow all the time, and where there are polar bears and Arctic foxes and narwhals and seals and creatures like that. And this village, just a small village, the men would go hunting, and they would bring back, something to eat. It might be a seal. Occasionally it might be a whale. It's kind of what they did in those days, and in some places they still do this. In some places it's how they live, and occasionally they might have a polar bear. But whatever they took for their food for the winter, they always respected the animal. And one day the men came back, and well, they brought a little polar bear cub back with them, and because they'd dare I say they'd taken the mother, and the little polar bear had a mother, and they didn't want to leave the little baby polar bear all on its own. They thought, well, what can we do with it? What can we do with it? And then they remembered the old lady of the village. Now, she lived alone. She was very old. She couldn't hunt. She had no sons, no husband to hunt for her. But the villagers would always take, whatever they hunted, they would always take a cut of meat or a piece of fish or something, a big fish or something, a salmon or something. They would always take something around to the old lady, so she always had some food. And they thought, I wonder if she'd like the cub for some company. So they went round and they knocked on the door. She opened the door. Oh, hello, she said, hello. The hunter said, we've been hunting, and we found a baby cub there. She hasn't got its mother anymore. The baby cub hasn't got its mother anymore. And we wondered if you might want to look after it. Well, why would I want to look after a baby cub? Said the old lady. Well, he could keep you company. She thought, I'll give it a try, she said. I'll give it a try. So she took the little baby cub in. Well, the little baby cub, the first thing it did is it snuggled up to her. And she picked it up and she held it, and it kind of snuggled into her. And well, just something happened in that moment, and she immediately fell in love with this little baby cub, this little polar bear cub. And she thought, I must give you a name. And she thought and she thought, and she said, I'm going to call you Nanook. And she called the little baby cub Nanook. Well, every time she got given a little piece of meat or a piece of fish, she'd cut it in half. She'd give the raw piece to the polar bear, and she'd cook her piece, and she'd eat it with the little baby polar bear, the little cub. And this would go on day after day, week after week. And the polar bear got to be a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then it would start looking out the window at the children. It could hear the children outside playing. And she said, would you like to go and play with the children? And, this old lady and this little bear, they kind of had a language between them that they understood. And she understood he wanted to go outside. So she opened the door and he went outside. And the children, well, they saw this young cub, this young baby polar bear cub. And well, they started to play with it. And it loved it. They were playing in the snow and rolling around and scrambling up the village this way and scrambling up the village that way. And they did all manner of things together. And the cub loved it. And they loved the cub. And the cub got a bit older and a bit older and a bit bigger and a bit bigger. And soon the hunters saw that, well, he was quite big now and he needed more fish and more meat. They had dropped more meat and more fish off at the old ladies to keep the cub fed, to keep her fed. They thought, polar bears are good hunters. Maybe we should take him with us to hunt. And they went to the old lady one day and they said, can we take him with us hunting? Yes, but look after him. Oh, we will, they said, we will. He's one of us. He's one of us. He's one of us villagers. We'll look after him. And off the hunters went with the bear. Well, polar bears are good hunters. And he caught fish and seals and all manner of things. And they'd never brought back so much fresh meat for the villagers to eat. Well, this happened several times. And this bear got bigger and bigger. They had to stop him playing with the children because he was so big and so strong, he didn't know his own strength. And they were worried that he might hurt the children. So he had to stop playing with the children. And then the hunters one day said, he is bringing back more meat than we ever had. He's getting too big. he's getting too strong. He'll start taking over. We'll have to do something with him. Well, what? They thought. What could we do with him? Well, let's take him out into the icy landscape and let's kill him. Well, while they were having this conversation, there was a little boy, perhaps the age of Louis, actually. He heard this conversation and what they were going to do to the polar bear. And the first thing he did is he went around to where the old lady lived and he knocked on the door. The lady came to the door. Oh, come in, she said. And he sat down with the old lady and he told the old lady what the hunters were planning to do. Oh, my dear. Oh, thank you for telling me, she said. Oh, what am I to do? And he said, why don't you sneak him out into the far, far icy places, the snowy, icy places where hunters rarely go? Why don't you take him out there so he'll be safe? Good idea, said the old lady, good idea. But how will I know? How will I know? How will I know he's still alive? And the young boy said, put a mark on his fur. That's a good idea, she said. So she got some oil and she got some embers from the fire, some cold embers, some of those black charcoal bits of embers, and she crushed it all up in the oil. She crushed it all up and mixed it all together, and she got a brush. She dipped it in. And when the bear was looking the other way, chatting to the boy, she just gently made a mark on his fur. And he thought she was just stroking him, but actually with her paintbrush, she just made a long black mark on the back of his fur. Well, anyway, the old lady told the polar bear what the hunters were planning to do to him. And he said, well, I'll fight with them. And she said, no, we don't want to do that. You must go somewhere safe. I will take you. When I was a little girl, I would go with my family far, far out hunting. I know all the places. I will take you somewhere deep, deep, deep in the snow where they never go. Okay. So that night, the old lady took that polar bear miles and miles and miles and miles deep, deep, deep out into that snowscape. And she looked at him and she said, it's time for you to go. And he looked at her and he said, you've been my mother. I'm sad to leave you. I will look out for you. And she said, well, I will look out for you too. Now you must go and don't come back to the village because they will kill you. Don't come back to the village. And off he went. And the old lady trudged back to the village. Well, of course, the next day, the hunters realized that the bear was no longer around. Word got around. Other village people heard about this bear and they tried to hunt him down. They tried to find him, this bear, the biggest polar bear that they'd ever seen in their lives, but no one could ever find him. But as time went on, you know, every now and again, someone passing through that village would talk about a polar bear that they'd seen. And the strange thing about him was he had a black stripe. And the story of that polar bear with the black stripe carried on and on and on. And he lived a long, good life. That's the story of the old lady and the polar bear. Thank you. Thank you. So it's another news story that I'm still kind of finding my way with a little bit, actually.
But isn't it the wonder of storytelling when you're creating or fashioning a new story and how you tell it and polish it and refine it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's more than one version of that story. I've been doing quite a lot of research on the story, and there's more than one version of that story. So yeah. So yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna have a quick little drink.
Go ahead. Let's give him another round of applause.
So I guess are we going up to the hour? Are we, Bubba?
Yes, sir.
It's been so long since I've been here, I can't remember what we do. But it's good to be back. I'm enjoying being back.
And we're enjoying you enjoying being back.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And to see some familiar faces. I got to meet Norman in the summer, Bubba. Obviously, I met you both at Marrakesh in February, but in the summer, Norman came across to Great Britain, and we tented quite close together, which was nice. And
wait a minute, in actual tents?
Actual tents.
Yes.
We were living like, well, yeah, like nomads through the
No.
Yes,
summer.
we did. Norman and I did as well at Cambridge.
That's right.
Ah.
You know, I had this little tent that it was really cute, and it was my shelter. But yeah, I camped out for the summer,
Yeah.
and it was cold at night.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I
My
couldn't use
idea
the
of
polar
tent
bear.
of staying out in the woods now in a tent is a wood cabin with a stove and a kitchenette.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys enjoy tenting. All right.
Yeah.
We went out intently.
It's something
Yeah.
I will not be attempting anytime soon. And talk about tents, we're very attentive for your next story.
Yes. So I thought I might tell you a Jack tale, one of my favorite Jack tales, actually. So, and Jack, you know, he appears in lots of different stories, Louis. He didn't just climb up a beanstalk, you know, he did, and he didn't just kill a giant. He had many adventures. He was one of the luckiest people that I know. And well, but there was a time when he lived with, some say it was his mother, some say it was his grandmother. I think it was his grandmother that he was living with. And they were on, you know, they were hard times, poor times, and there wasn't much to eat at all. And it was this time of the year, it was a bit wintry, it's a bit cold, you know. And Granny said, Jack, she said, go in the little barn. She said, I've got some oats in there. She said, perhaps I'll make, I don't know, some porridge or some flapjacks or something with some oats, she said. Yeah, flapjacks, lovely. One of my favorites, flapjacks. He said, oh, yes, Grandma, okay, I will. So he went into the barn and he got to the sack with the oats in, and I mean, it was nearly empty. I mean, and it's all they had. It was almost the last that they had. And he took a handful like this of oats, and he thought, oh, this is enough. So he stepped out the barn, and as he stepped out the barn, the north wind whoosh, blew across him and blew all the oats out of his hand, just like that. And it was just everywhere it went. And he thought, what? I don't believe it. We've got hardly any food, and the north wind has just whipped all that oats out of my hand. Oh. Well, he went back into the barn. He thought, I better be really careful here. And he took another handful of oats, and he thought, oh, there's only one more handful left. I'm going to have to be extra careful, Louis. He thought, I'm going to be really careful. So being a careful, sensible young man, he got to the door and he only stuck his head out. He just his head, and he looked left and he looked right, and there was no north wind, and he stepped outside. As soon as he stepped outside, whoosh, the north wind came and blew all the oats out of his hands again. He went, I don't believe this. Oh, I don't believe this. And he went back into the barn again, and he thought, I'm going to have to be really careful this time. And he put his hands in and he scooped out the last of the oats. It's all they had to eat, just a handful of oats. And he thought, I'm going to have to be really careful. And he stuck his head out the door, and he looked left, and he looked right, and he looked left again, and he looked right again. And there was no north wind. And he stepped outside. The north wind came in and blew it all out of his hands again, and there was no oats. Well, he went into the house. He said, Grandma, you won't believe what's happened. And she said, what's happened, Jack? He said, the north wind has only blown all the oats out of my hands. Oh dear, Jack. Well, we've got nothing to eat now. Oh dear, never mind. We'll find something. Where does he live? Said Jack. What, the north wind? Yes, Grandma. Where does he live? Oh, he lives at the end of the earth. That's how far away he lives. It's a long way. He said, well, I'm going to go and see him. She said, it's too far for you to go, Jack. And she was just about to grab hold of his collar to stop him. And he stepped out the door and he got away and he escaped. Well, he walked and 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 he walked. Are we there yet, Louis? We're not. It's a long way to the end of the earth. He walked and 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 he walked, and eventually he got to the end of the earth, and he knocked on the door of the north wind. Knock, 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 knock. And the north wind opened the door. Oh, hello, Jack. How nice to see you. Why have you come to see me, Jack? Why have I come to see you? You stole all our oats. There's nothing for us to eat. What are you going to do about it? Oh, wait there a moment, Jack. And the north wind disappeared, and Jack could hear him in the back room. And then the north wind came to the front door. Here we are, Jack. And he handed Jack a tablecloth. Jack said, oh, I don't want a tablecloth. I haven't got any food to put on the tablecloth. Oh, Jack, this is a special tablecloth. If you spread it on the table and say cloth, cloth, food, food, it will produce all the food that you want. Are you sure? Said Jack. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Take it with pleasure, said the north wind. And the north wind closed the door and Jack took the cloth and off he went. Well, he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. Well, he'd done a lot of walking and it was now night time and it was a long way to go home. And he thought, well, I'll never make it home tonight. I'll have to stay somewhere. And he came across an old inn, a bit like a pub, Louis, but they called them inns in those days. And you could keep your horse there and you could sleep there overnight and all that. And he went into the inn and the innkeeper, well, there was no one in the pub. And the innkeeper stood there. Can I help you? Do you want a meal? Are you going to spend some money in my pub? Jack said, well, I've got my own food. Watch this. And he took the tablecloth and he unfolded it, put it on the table and he said, cloth, cloth, food, food. And suddenly all this food appeared, Louis. Now, I don't know what your favourite food is. Fish and chips, chicken, burgers. I'm not sure what your favourite food is. Are you able to tell me, Jack? Louis. I've turned Louis into Jack there. Well,
Louis, what's your favorite food?
What's your favourite food, Louis?
Ooh, that's easy.
Go on then.
Pizza chips, like curry sauce.
Pizza with curried sauce, did you say?
Pizza, chips, and curry sauce.
Very, very. I've had chips and curried sauce before. That was when I went to Liverpool. But well, do you know he on that table, Louis, I kid you not, there was the biggest pizza with the nicest curry sauce and a huge bowl of chips on the and the innkeeper saw that and he thought, it's a magic cloth. When he goes to sleep, I'm going to steal it. Well, Jack ate his food. And it was bedtime for him and he went upstairs and he took the cloth up there with him and he folded it up and he put it on the chair beside his bed. While the innkeeper, he waited until he could hear Jack was asleep. He could hear Jack gently snoring. And he went into his cupboard. He took out a cloth that looked almost the same. And he snuck up the stairs really silently. Up the stairs. He went into Jack's room really quietly. And he swapped the two cloths over and Jack was asleep. In the morning, Jack woke up and he did a big stretch. Oh, could you do a big stretch, Louis? Stretch your arm like, oh, big stretch. Oh. And Jack thought, oh, I've got to get back and see Grandma. And he picked up the cloth and off he went and he walked 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 and he went really fast and he got back home. And Grandma was there and she said, Jack, where have you been, Jack? I've waited all night for you. You weren't home. Where have you been, Jack? Where have you been? He said, Grandma, he said, it's fantastic. He said, I've got this tablecloth and it'll give us all the food that we want. So he unfolded the tablecloth, he put it on the table and he said, you watch this, Grandma, it's really brilliant. Cloth, cloth, food, food. And nothing happened. Cloth, cloth, food, food. Nothing happened. Jack, she said, you and your tall tales, you're always telling tall stories. Now get in, Jack, she said, I'm not having none of it. He said, that north wind has cheated me again, Grandma. And he was about to run out. She tried to grab hold of his collar, but he pulled away from her and off he went. And he was out that door like a rat down a drain pipe, as they say. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked a bit faster this time because he was a little bit annoyed with the north wind now. And he walked and he walked and he walked, he walked and he walked. Are we there yet, Jack? Are we there yet, Louis? Not quite. He walked and 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 he walked. And he got to the north wind's house. And he knocked on the door. He knocked on the north wind's house. And the north wind opened the door. Oh, Jack, so nice to see you so soon. Why have you come to see me, Jack? The cloth didn't work. Oh, how strange. Wait there, Jack, I have something else for you. He disappeared into the back of the house and Jack could hear him. And then he came to the front door and he had a goat. The north wind had a goat and he said, Jack, this goat is a magic goat. If you tweak his ear like that, out the other end comes gold coins. Ching, ching. Really, Jack said, Oh, yes, yes, yes. This is a magic goat, Jack. Take that. It will never run out of gold coins. Thank you, said Jack. And he took the rope of the goat, and when he walked and he walked and he walked, and the goat was behind him, and he walked and he walked, but it was a long way to go home because the end of the earth is a very long way, and it got dark again. And he ended up at the inn once again. He thought, I'm going to have to stay a second night here. So he went in, the innkeeper was standing there. No one else in there. He never got much business. He was a grumpy old thing. He just stood there. Can I help you? Jack said, I want everything that you've got on the menu, including all the pizzas. I'll try all the different curry sauces, and I want sweet potato fries. I want skinny fries. I want fat fries. I want crinkly cut fries. I want all the different chips that you do. And the innkeeper said, well, have you got money to pay for that, boy? I have. Watch this. And he on the goat's ear, and ching ching, 2 gold coins came out. And the innkeeper saw this. Gold coins from a goat. When he's asleep, I'm going to pinch it. But he didn't say it out loud. He was just thinking it in his head. Well, anyway, Jack had a magnificent feast, and he could pay for it. Well, then it was bedtime. Jack went upstairs. The innkeeper listened. He waited until he could hear Jack gently snoring. In his yard, he kept a few chickens, a goose, and he had a goat for the milk. And he took his goat upstairs, because Jack had his goat upstairs with him. You were allowed to sleep with your animals in those days. I mean, strange people, but you're allowed to sleep with your animals in those days. The goat was on the rug in front of the fire. I mean, who'd ever heard of that, such a thing? I mean, some people sleep with their dogs, apparently. I mean, and the cats, it's just get down, Shep. Anyway, so he snuck upstairs, and while Jack was sleeping, he swapped the goats over, and Jack didn't know. Jack woke up in the morning, he had a big stretch. Oh, and he thought, I can't wait to show Grandma the goat that gives us gold. And he took the goat. Well, he went back. He walked and he walked and he walked, and the goat was kind of walking as fast as good to keep up with him, because Jack couldn't wait to get back to tell Grandma. Grandma was standing there. Jack, where have you been? You didn't come home again last night. I've been so worried about you, Jack. Grandma, it's brilliant. I've got a goat that will give us gold coins. You watch this, Grandma. And he took it into the kitchen. He said, all I've got to do is tweak its ear. And he tweaked its ear, tweak, and there was a plop, plop, plop on the floor. Now, I don't know what you think it was, Louis, but it wasn't gold. It kind of went plop, plop, plop. I think you know, Louis, with that little smile on your face, I think you know what plopped onto the floor. Grandmother said, Jack, it's pooing on the floor, Jack. The goat is pooing on the floor. I've only just cleaned my kitchen floor, Jack. Look at them. Get it outside. Get it outside. And he took it outside and he said, I don't know what's going on here, Grandma. I think the north wind has cheated me again. I'm going to go and see him. And whew, Jack was gone. Well, he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. He started running this time, and he was running. He thought, I'm going to have a word with that north wind. And he was running in, and he got back to the north wind really, really quickly. And he knocked on the door. He was a bit more urgent this time, and the north wind opened the door. The goat didn't work. The goat didn't work. You've cheated me again. Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry to hear that. Something's going on here, Jack. Something's not right. I have another little something for you, Jack. Wait there. And he could hear him in the back of the room. And then he came to the door again. And he had a stick. A bit like John Rowe's stick, actually. And he said, Jack, this is not John Rowe's stick. This is my stick. And it's a magical stick. All you have to say is stick, stick, beat, beat. And it will beat whoever you want to beat. And Jack thought, that's not a very nice thing, but I can't think who I want to beat, but I better take it anyway. So he took it. Thank you, he said. Well, he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. And he was thinking about, I don't know what I could use this stick for. And he walked and he walked. And it was getting late, got dark. And he thought, I'm going to have to stay in the inn again. And he went into the inn, and the innkeeper saw that stick straight away. And he thought, I bet that's a special stick. When he's asleep, I'm going to pinch it. Have a meal, Jack. And he gave Jack a meal. He said, don't worry about paying for it, Jack. He said, don't, you can stay the night for free. Don't worry. You can have a free meal on me. He said, don't worry about it. Jack had his meal. Jack went upstairs and he took his stick up with him. But as he was going upstairs, Jack got thinking, which he didn't do very often. But he got thinking, he thought, when I brought the cloth here, it worked. But when I got home, it didn't work. When I brought the goat here, it gave me gold coins, but it gave me poop when I got it home. Ah, I know what's going on, Louis. He thought, I know what's going on. And he put the stick right beside his bed, right close to him. And he pretended to go to sleep, Louis. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this at home. Louis, have you ever sort of like pretended to close your eyes like that, and but you're really looking through your eyelashes, or you put your fingers up like that, and yeah, I see you do it. I do it too. And you look through your fingers. I used to do it to my mum and dad, all looking through his finger, and he was doing that. You see, he's looking through his eyelashes. He was, and the innkeeper went out the back garden, cut a little stick, and he thought he'll never know. He snuck upstairs really quietly and slowly. Jack was asleep. The innkeeper crept across the room. He was just about to get hold of Jack's stick, and Jack sat up in bed and went, stick, stick, beat, beat. Well, that stick, it flew up in the air, and it went after the innkeeper, and it began to smack him on his bottom. And the innkeeper was going, ouch, oh, ow, oh, and the stick was slap, slap. And the innkeeper was, ow, that hurts my bottom. Oh, ow, oh, make the stick stop, Jack, make the stick stop. And Jack said, well, give me back my tablecloth and my goat then. And the innkeeper went, oh, I will, Jack, make the stick stop. And he said, stick, stick, stop, stop. And the stick just stopped. And the innkeeper gave Jack his tablecloth and his goat back. And Jack took them, and Jack took the stick too. And Jack walked back home. Well, Grandma was standing there. Jack, she said, this had better be a good story, because this is 3 nights I haven't seen you now. This had better be, it's a brilliant story, Grandma. He said, you watch the tablecloth. And he unfolded the tablecloth, put it on the table, and he said, cloth, cloth, food, food. And suddenly this huge pizza appeared with a delicious curry sauce and all the chips that you can imagine. And there was ice cream and strawberries and chocolate and all manner of things. Oh, wonderful, Jack. He said, you watch the goat, Grandma. And he tweaked its ear, tweak, tweak, and ching, 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 ching. Gold coins came out. Wonderful, Jack, she said, wonderful. Jack, what does the stick do? Nothing, Grandma, it's just a stick. It's just a stick, Grandma. It's just a stick. It's just a stick, Grandma. It doesn't do anything. It's just a stick, Grandma. Okay, she said. Well, after that, while they never wanted for food, they never wanted for money. And if any visitors came past, well, there was always a place at the table. There was always something to eat and something to drink. And they lived a long, good, happy life. And that's the story of Jack and the North Wind.
You know, I've heard different versions of that, but I must say that your version was the most captivating and entertaining version I've had. And I'm trying to figure out how to adopt it for my African-American audience.
Ah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
And when I tell it live, I'm standing up, and I'm even more physical with it. I get very carried away with the story, actually.
You sound a lot like me. I like that. We're going to do something a little unusual. We have a few minutes left.
Bye.
Oh,
bye.
until the next time, Louis.
It's been
enjoy
lovely to
your
see you,
swim.
Louis. It's been good to see you, Louis.
Bye, Louis.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Enjoy your swim, Louis.
I
Don't get
will.
wet.
Yeah, don't get wet. Yeah.
I will. Bobby C, I will keep an eye on you.
You do that, Louis. You've got to keep an eye
All
on
right,
him, I tell
Louis.
you.
Enjoy your swim. Missing
I
you
will.
already.
Me too. Bobby C, you.
All right, I'd like to do something we usually don't do, but we have a few minutes left. I'd like starting with Phil. Phil, I'd like you to unmute and comment about Shane's storytelling.
Oh, Shane, that was just absolutely adorable.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just love the way that you tell, and just delighted by your sound effects and the way you get going. And I was smiling at the spank bottom with the stick.
Yes, I tell it in schools quite a lot, and I always think, oh, are the teachers okay with me telling that? But I do. So.
Whoops. Next, let's hear from Donald. Donald.
Hello, that was fantastic, Shane. Yes, I really did like that story. And that you say you usually stand up, and
Yes.
I just hope if there's any kids sitting on the floor, they're not too close to you,
Yeah.
because I'm quite mobile as well when I'm telling. And,
Yeah.
there have been a couple of little toes and fingers, I'll say almost stood on while I'm
Okay.
telling. But I can just imagine you telling that story. The only
Yeah.
problem is in Scotland, I would have to choose from the north, the south, the east, or the west wind because they all blow at the same time here. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
And you're closer to the north wind as well up there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's cross the pond and ask Norman for his comments.
I was delighted too, Shane, and I wish that I could be standing nearby so I can hear him in person. I was struck by the north wind. I could see the north wind as this kind of sharp featured, long, his fingers out like the wind and things like that, and going.
Yeah. Yes.
That it was very, very real. And he what I liked about well, I like the other stories too, but it was Jack and the Wind that got me, particularly in that the north wind is not grumpy or growly or Jack, you've caused me so much trouble.
Yeah.
He just says, oh, that's the way things are going, right?
Yeah.
And Jack figures it out for himself.
For himself. Yes.
That time in the night when you're lying down and then thoughts begin to wander around your head. And that's, when you put the day together and you come up, that stick will come in handy.
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah. So we're going to go to Terry. Terry is south of you, but north of me. So, Terry, your comment.
Hey, Jane.
Hi.
As a retired teacher, I will tell you that when you tell that story about Jack and the North Wind, teachers are going back to their classroom and they're having a discussion about that stick with their students. So don't worry about it. Now, I enjoyed all of your stories. It's the first time I've had the privilege of hearing you. And I had never heard the elf story. I am a great lover of Pourquoi and Jack Tales. So, of course, my favorites were How the Blackbird Came to Be and Jack and the North Wind. And I'm like Baba C. I've heard Jack and the North Wind many times before, but I really enjoyed your version. And I put in the chat, but in case you don't have time to look at that, just like Phil said, the sound effects were amazing.
Thank you.
They were amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm going to get almost the last word because Shane, we're going to let you get the last word. Oh, next week I got to do a little bit of business. Please tune in. This Sunday we have off, but next Tuesday we have Young International Storytellers at 12 noon American time. So that's 5 p.m. UK time. I'm getting it. I'm learning it. Yay. And then next Friday we have Stories for Children. But alas, I don't know who's doing next Friday, but we'll find out before next Friday and announce it next Tuesday. Okay. But Shane, I know a version of the story where instead of a tablecloth, it's a goat, and you hold the goat up and you say, goat, make food, and the food comes out the other end. I don't tell it that way for the American audience. I know, Terry, I agree.
It's not my sort of cuisine.
I agree with you. Yes. So, I mean, like, and in one version it was stew. So no. I changed it around. Just so that you rub the goat and you say food, and the food appears. But that's what I'm talking about, all the different versions of the story. And I'm so going to borrow it as soon as I can figure out a way to put a little African-American twist on it. So Shane, you're going to get the last word, I think, except for me saying goodbye. But I mean, until the next time, because I never say goodbye. Well, so Shane, if you want to say anything.
Well, I've had a lovely evening. I can see you've all been attentive, which is lovely to see. And because it is all about the audience. Without that audience participation that you can see, the story doesn't happen, does it? So it's been great, and it's been great to come back on here. Actually, it's been a long while, but it's been good to come back. I've enjoyed it, and you've chaired it very well, Bubba.
Thank you. Oh yeah, John Rowe is in America right now. He's in Texas, which is southwest of me. I'm on the East Coast. He's almost on the West Coast. Wow. He's closer to the Gulf of Mexico. United States is tri-coastal. We have the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Gulf of Mexico. So, this has been fabulous. I've enjoyed you, Shane. Please don't be a stranger. And to everybody listening to us in social media land, especially Facebook. We're here every Friday, and we're here every Friday with stories for children, and they're for children of all ages, whether you're prenatal or whether you are 113, 14 or older. The stories are for everyone. So please come and join us. All right. So Shane, it's been a delight, man. You as my mother would say, you are something else. Actually, my mother said you're somebody else's, but that's another story. This has been great. So Donald, Terry, Phil, Norman, Shane, everybody have a great weekend, and we are out.
Thank you, Baba.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Until the next
Thank you,
time, to
everyone.
be continued.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Shane, you were fabulous. All right. All right. Just for you, Wally. See, out. Ah.